Greetings, Delaware. Greetings, Delaware companies and exporters and trade and business experts. Thank you all for tuning in today to talk about the Delaware Online Global Programs and Delaware Grants for exporters and companies. We're delighted that you're all here today. So we're going to be talking about development websites to help you grow your exports and sales and business internationally. Just while the last people are logging on and registering, let's do a quick introduction of who we have today. I guess really starting with myself. My name is Susanna Hardy. I'm Chief Content Officer at a company called IBT Online. I'm delighted to be with you today. It's a real pleasure to talk to Delaware companies. They're such an international lot by definition in your state, and I'm really pleased to be here today. I'm joined by my colleague Jeff Ardis, who's Business Development Director at IBT Online. And Jeff, based also in sort of the New England area, based in Massachusetts. I think a regular visitor also to the Delaware area too. And Jeff has been a U.S. business involved for many years, helping companies to target their markets overseas. He's a NASDAQ certified global business professional. And he enjoys both the coaching side and the educational part of the international journey. Jeff and I and IBT are really honored and delighted to be working together with Export Delaware, the Director of International Business Development, Beth Pomper, and the Marketing Director, Emma Poulter. We're really delighted to have Beth here. I'm sure known to most of you already. She's a marketing professional. She has about 30 years of experience behind her now, and she's responsible for the strategic export plan for Delaware and has been doing that for about 6 years now. She also established the Global Representative Network and assisted so many Delaware companies. As I said, I'm sure many of you already know her and have worked successfully with her to drive up your international business. Emma has been working with Beth for over 6 years now and handles all the marketing efforts for Export Delaware. And Emma describes herself as a Delaware girl, true and through. Right, so that's the four of us together. We're really pleased to be here talking to you today about global websites and how they can help you, particularly in these difficult and challenging times that we're all going through. A very quick word also on IBT Online. IBT Online is a private company headquartered in the United States. So we have some offices internationally. Our headquarters are based in the States, and we've been around since 2002. We are 100% focused on building, hosting, managing online tools for exporters, and that means basically websites and online marketing for international companies and international markets. So I guess our unique selling point is that we sort of think and act globally and online, and have done since our creation in 2002. Today's webinar, we've divided it up into 6 parts. We thought we'd sort of divide up into 6 parts here, really talking about, first of all, sort of what are the things that Delaware companies can rely on with your support from Export Delaware in today's markets. Then why do you need localized websites? What are they? Why do you need them? Some of the examples of the kind of online business development tools that Delaware exporters can now reach out to. How do exporters use them? And then the online global programs that are available for you in a little bit more detail. We've left time at the end for Q&A. Please drop your questions in, and we've got someone online. We've got my colleague Joelle helping out with questions, and we would really love to see any questions you have on that. That'd be great, and really pleased with that. I'm going to turn now to Beth and to talk a little bit about that helping hand for Delaware businesses and from Export Delaware. Beth, would you like to take us through some of those, please?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Like Susanna said, I'm Beth Pomper, and I lead Export Delaware's initiative in working with businesses to help you either launch your products or services overseas or expand. And I would like to also acknowledge my colleague, Miss Cynthia Kane. Cynthia Kane is also on the line, and Cynthia works with law firms and Delaware formation companies in helping you expand your businesses internationally. And we welcome Cynthia this morning. Will you switch to the next slide, please? It's important to note that every year we write a funding grant that helps pay for the state's international program. We're happy to say that currently each Delaware small business is eligible to receive up to $10,000 of STEP grant funds this year, thanks to a grant from the SBA. So the best way to explain this is it works kind of like an expense report. You would apply for the funds, incur the expense, and submit your receipts, and we would reimburse you up to 50% of the eligible international business development activities that will help you increase your sales. And certainly the program that IBT is offering is very paramount to that. Next slide. Now is a great time for you to get your website translated into a foreign language and optimize it for an international audience. The rest of the world is at home, like us. The supply chains have changed. The landscape will be forever changed. So more and more people will be working from home, and it's really important for you to have your website appropriate for an international audience. I'm happy to announce that our grant can cover up to $6,000 of the expenses for you to do that with IBT Online, our partner. Next slide. Okay, how does it work? The first thing you have to do is apply for a STEP grant, and this is not a big, long government form. I'm happy to say that it will take you 10 minutes or less to complete it. That application can be found on our Export Delaware website, www.exportdelaware.gov, or you can reach out to myself or to Emma, and we can send it to you. Then we will give you a notice of award. We can turn that around within 48 hours. And then we will, of course, connect you to Jeff and Susanna at IBT Online for you to start the process. You would pay IBT Online for their work and submit your receipts to us for reimbursement, and then the state will provide up to $6,000 reimbursement to you electronically via direct deposit to your bank account. So it's quite simple. Many of you have worked with us on this in the past with regard to your international travel, but because of the pandemic, the SBA has increased the ceiling for internationalization and localization of websites to $6,000. So now is the time to take advantage of this because they doubled the reimbursement. So I would urge all of you to ask questions at the end, and IBT comes to us highly recommended, and I'm sure they'll do a great job for you. Next slide. And here is my contact information. And this will be recorded as well, so you can always tune back in and look at the slides, but please reach out with any questions or concerns you have, and we'd be very happy to get the ball rolling while the ceiling is so high on the reimbursement. Thank you so very much, and I'll turn it back over to you, Susanna.
Beth, thank you so much, and what a warm and wonderful start for a webinar to know that Delaware companies have very active, very proactive, and generous support from Export Delaware, and really terrific. And Beth and Emma and her team really do help and are available at all times to helping. Now let us talk about exporters and localized websites and what they are, how do they work, why do you need them, that sort of thing. So the question now is, why do exporters need localized websites? And I guess the whole sort of COVID-19 thing has really brought it all home as even more, as Beth was saying just now. You know, there's more and more need for some kind of global solution for businesses, and you need to have these effective online business development tools to help you reach out, not just even beyond, you know, not just internationally, but even nationally these days. So that's sort of setting the big risk, big sort of picture view. When we talk to companies, exporters, and we talk to them about all the different markets, we talk to them about, you know, we talk to them also in many different markets, from Mexico to Japan to the UK, wherever they are. They come back with four main concerns at the moment, four big priorities for business. And I guess, you know, clearly looking after employees and is top of that. But I must say, managing costs and cash flow come up very close second. Maintaining your partnerships, your distributors, your relationships, your networks, and maintaining or rebuilding supply chains is part of that too. And again, we hear the need to generate some kind of sales, export, and business. And it's really that fourth item that we're going to be talking about today. Business development websites are about generating sales, brand awareness, driving forward your business. And that's what we're going to be talking about. I want to set the picture first, set the scene first in terms of the sort of online world and what we mean when we talk about this online world. What is it? At last count, we're about 7.5 billion people on the planet. 60% of us, 4.5 billion, are plugged into the internet. And when the people who do this research, Hootsuite, when they analyze, when they talk about, you know, plugged into the internet, what do they mean? They mean that the average amount of time per day per internet user, 6 hours and 43 minutes. Since the start of this year, that number is closer to 7 hours a day. So take it as 4.5 billion people spending 7 hours a day on average on the internet. So there we go. We know where they are. They're on the internet. What are they doing? Well, one of the main things they're doing is talking. So we said 4.5 billion are on the internet. 3.8 billion are on social media. And again, these numbers have crept up pretty significantly since the last 3-4 months. And again, in terms of hours spent, it's more like 3 hours a day on average on social media. Now you could say, well, yes, but this is all about the developed world, isn't it? This is just the USA, really. You know, and places like that. No, in fact, it really is everywhere in the world. And okay, some places are still, you know, far behind. You know, India is the big one that still has to shift. But you know, with 29% penetration rate of social media, that's still something like 400 million people. The USA has a penetration rate of 70%. There's a lot of countries that are far higher than that. Anything in the Middle East, for example, is more in the 90% on social media. One of the big ways that social media is used as well is for business. Nearly 50% of internet users who use social media say they use it for work. And here you go. In this slide, we talked about 2 hours. It's currently call it 2.5 hours spent per day on social media. So this is the big side of things. Now, I think the other point that I wanted to make just about this sort of big landscape of the online world is that online really is for everybody. We see a lot of companies saying, yeah, but I'm a B2B, or I'm a service company. You know, we're lawyers, or we're a manufacturer. You know, we make such wonderful things that they sell themselves. I think COVID-19 and the world has moved on. You know, anyone looking to buy something these days, a product or a service, wants to check out who it is they're buying from. And you check that out online today more than ever. So, you know, 80% of B2C purchases are researched before buying. 95% of B2B purchases are researched before contacting a sales rep. You know, so it is really important these days to have that online real estate where people will actually find you, engage with you, talk to you, find out who you are. So that's our I guess our first point. And you know, a lot of, you know, Beth mentioned, you know, travel is being sort of COVID, if that's a verb these days. You know, travel is being sort of canceled, postponed quite a bit. And trade shows, in that sense, are being canceled. One of the major things that we see for people, and again and again, where their trade shows have been canceled, especially for B2B companies, where this was a major part of their ability to reach out to their clients, find new distributors, and look over their competitors. You know, they're not able to do that anymore. Equally for service companies, trade shows, or trade missions, and international conferences was the time when you build up networks, relationships, found new clients, and found new partners. These have now been sort of, you know, postponed. The overriding message and recommendation we have is lean into your relationships. Lean into the relationships you have with the existing clients and also with the existing prospects. You know, and lean in. How do you lean in these days? You lean in online. Make sure your website's working properly, internationally as well as nationally. Make sure that it is, you know, relevant. Does it say the right thing? How about your social media? You know, these are some of the things that we will be talking about today. Before I do so, I would like to have a quick poll just to make sure you're all there. So I'm going to launch a quick poll, and it's just to ask you, when do you think your company is going to be ready to travel internationally? Do you think you're going to be traveling internationally within the next 3 months, within the next 6 months, within a year? You know, are you looking close? Are you looking far away? How optimistic are you that things are going to be turning around within 3 months or within 9 months and so on? Most of you have answered, thank you very much for that. And I can say, you know, a good 50% of you are looking within the next 6 months to travel internationally, which is great to hear. I'm really pleased to hear that, and hope to see you all at some next venues. But thank you all very much. So yeah, most of you are looking within the next 6 months. Good, that's our first poll. We'll have a few more. Now let's get back and talk about websites. So one of the things that we said was, you know, your website also has to reflect what's going on right now. And one of the clearest things you can do is also say what our websites are focusing on. We're open for business. If you are open for business, announce it. You know, if someone wants to give you an order, get in touch with you, engage your services, they need to know that they can. The way that you do business may have changed over the last few months, and you may want to be changing the way that business is done in the next few months. Make sure that it's obvious. Tell your prospects, tell your customers how they're supposed to be doing business with you. Make sure also that your distributors or in-market partners, how can they help you? How can they engage with you? What about new calls to action, CTAs, on your websites? Should they be different from your existing CTAs? Those are all some of the questions that we'd like to be asking for your online tools. I guess for us, it's really also a question of beginning to be prepared for the rebound. Now, you know, my colleague Jeff and I, we do not have, or IBT Online does not have a crystal ball, obviously. We don't know when, where, how. We don't know what shape that rebound will be. We believe strongly that there will be a rebound. Our overriding message is do not disappear from the radar. Once you're gone, you're gone. It's really hard to get back. If you're a company that exports, you worked hard to get that export recognition, those in-market partners. If you withdraw now, you leave that space open. And it's going to be very hard to claw it back. So think about the ways that you can stay on the radar, that you can engage that. And for us, the way to do that is by using, maximizing your online real estate, which means your websites and your social media. For companies, we think it's also really important to have some guidelines about key indicators. And every company will have a different set of key indicators. I just wanted to share this one. It's a bit of a contentious one. One of our clients in the aviation sector, he's very leveraged. The company that he works for is quite leveraged to Chinese aviation industry. And so he watches this very closely. He watches this IATA, I never pronounced that right, IATA economics numbers, and just to see where the passenger numbers are in terms of the pre and post COVID. And the solid red line in this is actually the one with the strongest recovery, strongest fall, and strongest recovery. That's the COVID-19. Stronger fall, stronger recovery so far than SARS, or indeed equally stronger than even 9/11. So that's an interesting, this is just one company who happens to look at this as a lead indicator. Slightly perhaps more cheerful note. Hermès, the French luxury goods company, opened up its flagship store in Guangzhou. Guangzhou is the most affluent province in China. They clocked in $2.7 million worth of sales in one day, the one Saturday that they reopened. That's the highest grossing day for a single boutique in China for any industry. And social media in China went nuts about it too. It's some screenshots on the left-hand side of just some WeChats, some screenshots of social media in China just saying, hey, I was there at the Hermès store, look at that, it was really fun. So it was a big, big event. And again, looks like sales have continued to increase there. So getting back to this is sort of the introductory question, this question about why do Delaware companies need localized websites? The first point is that the world is online. Your clients, your prospects, your in-market partners, your network, your employees, your suppliers, they are all online today. They will search you out online and check you out online. But they will do it in their local and online environment. And we're going to get to that next. The second point, why you need localized websites and why you need to be online properly, is really to prepare for the rebound. You need effective online business development tools in today's world. The new norm of business involves online tools and very specific ones for exporters. And that's what we're going to be diving in now. So let's talk a little bit about online development tools, online business development tools. Basically, let's make it simple. There's only two. Really, when it comes down to it, there's just two. There's a website and online marketing. And websites come in all shapes and forms. You can have a B2B, a B2G, be the government, by the way. It can have e-commerce enablement or not. It can have all kinds of bells and whistles, or a very simple one. It can have secret areas. It can have security zones. It can have lots of plugins, or it can be like a brochure, but it's a website. And on the other side, the other group of products that you have, of tools that you have, is basically online marketing, whether that's search engine marketing, which involves optimizing your website for search engines, or social media marketing. They're all about marketing. And I guess for us, the important point is that if you're strong in the US, and you have a good, strong US website based in Delaware, that's fantastic. And you've got some search engine optimization going along on that website, and you've got some social media on that website, that's terrific. But if you've got some really strong prospects in markets like, I don't know, France, strong business, strong prospects, good at, looking forward, then that also requires you maybe to have some online real estate. And that's what we talk about a French online localized website, a website that is localized for France. And with that, a localized search engine optimization and localized social media. They can both, as in this diagram with France and Brazil, they can both reconnect to your US website. That's fine. But they are separate little orbits on their own, and then feed back into your US website. And I guess the reason for that, and the reason it has to be structured that way, is because everything on the web, social media, websites, everything is customer-centric. It puts the searcher at the center of that exploration. So your customer, your client, your prospect has the controls. And it's not about you going out to get them. They need to be able to find you when they want, how they want, in whatever platform they're using. So that balance of power is a bit different these days. And remember this word, customer-centric or searcher-centric. To explain it better, I need really to talk again a little bit about how search engines work. There are lots of different search engines in the world. I mean, Google is by far the dominant leader. It has 70% market share globally. But there's a lot of different types of search engines. I mean, one that's not on this map is YouTube. YouTube now, second largest, website, in terms of popularity in the world. A lot of people go on YouTube and use it like a search engine. They go on YouTube and they say, how do I find this? How do I do this? That's using it like a search engine. So a lot of different search engines, but they are all searcher-centric. So to answer the question, why can't I use my Delaware website to go global? I've got a great Delaware website. We've put resources into it. We've done this stuff on this Delaware website. I want to search out German prospects, German companies. I know my product sells well in Germany. I just stick some German pages on my Delaware website and that's it. No, because Google in Germany is google.de, and your German prospect is typing in German. And even if he's typing in English, google.de knows he's sitting in Germany. And so google.de will choose and rank and say, that's your Delaware website is just not relevant for this guy sitting there in Dusseldorf. He's sitting in Dusseldorf, he's got a German keyboard in front of him, he's typing in German, he's on google.de. Google knows all that. And your website does not have a relevance for him. It's not hosted there. It's not got the right keywords. It doesn't have the right URL. There's lots of things that go into making a localized website. When I talk about localization, here's a good example. Localizing just by keywords. The keywords are the words you use to search for things. Okay, and this is, same search engine in each case. Google in each case. Mexico, Spain. Same language, Spanish, right? But in Mexico, 3/4 of the people in Mexico search using the word auto. In Spain, 90% search using the word coche. If you're not using the right keyword, you're not going to be found well and optimized in Spain or Mexico. If you're using auto in Spain, only 9% of people looking on the internet will actually think you're relevant, or Google will think that you're relevant for them if you're not using the right keyword. Okay, this is another example. Now this is Jeff and I, and we thought, what is relevant to people these days sitting at home? Well, if they're on a webinar, they do not want their dog making squeaky noises with the toys. So Jeff in Boston goes to google.com and he searches squeakless dog toys. I happen to be sitting in London. I go to google.co.uk. If you look at the top of the screen on this slide, it's google.co.uk. And I go, squeakless dog toys. Jeff gets chewy.com, amazon.com, freedompullharness.com. I get timeforpause.co.uk, amazon.co.uk, different Amazon, petforums.co.uk, different results. In brief, websites and online marketing, anything. So those websites and the online marketing are all customer-centric. and that means they are localized. I've listed on the right-hand side of this slide the 10 criteria that make up a localized website. You can see that one of the 10 involves translation for language. The other 9 are technical aspects and internet aspects, like the right domain names, so the right URLs, the right correct content management system. Hosting, where you're hosted, is really important. All those things are taken into account by Google to make sure that to determine whether you are relevant or not for a local customer. So the step one that you want, the step one that you need is a localized website to be customer centric. That allows you to be found and to be understood, and build that whole trust thing that you need for the buyer's journey. Before we talk about a buyer's journey, I wanted to talk also about what is a buyer persona. The buyer's journey internationally is via their own websites, their own web experience. What is a buyer persona? And a buyer persona is well, I'll give you a definition by HubSpot, a big marketing company. They define a buyer persona as a semi-fictional representation of your ideal customer based on market research and real data about your existing customers. So it's a sort of semi-fictional representation of your ideal customer. And you base that on research and existing data on your existing customers. And what's really important is to understand also how they differ in markets. And we'll see how different those buyer personas can be in different markets for exporters. Here's a great example of a buyer persona. Now, this is a company that I'm sure you all know, Zipcar. They take their buyer personas so seriously that it's actually in their mission statement. Their mission statement says, basically it's about you're urban, educated, techno-savvy, worry about the environment. Okay, and here's an image on their Instagram of an urban, educated, tech-savvy, environmentally conscious couple using using Zipcar. So, that's their buyer persona. That's who they're trying. That's the people who buy from Zipcar are typified by this couple. Let me give you an example about that internationally as well. And I think this is quite an important one. On the left-hand side, I've put a couple of questions which are worth thinking about longer term in terms of your international buyer persona. One of the key ones is, for example, should you treat in-market partners like distributors as a buyer persona? Usually the answer is yes. And what ways is your international buyer persona different from your domestic buyer persona? And in particular, how does your international buyer persona find you and interact and engage with you? On the right here on this slide is a screenshot from L'Oreal. L'Oreal, a French company, is really recognized as being a fantastic marketeer company. And if you look at this picture in the text, they are really, really reassuring their US audience, who's typically small businesses, self-employed stylists, who are all feeling the effects of COVID. L'Oreal, it says, we are there to support you. We're here to support you, in this difficult time and so on. Take a look at this for Australia. In Australia, the message is totally different. There's no mention of COVID-19 at all, but there's instead a real focus on the climate. That's really because they had these horrific fires recently, and that's what matters most to people in Australia at the moment. And then in this last example, I'm going to show of a buyer persona, and L'Oreal just getting it really spot on. L'Oreal demonstrates to its Brazilian consumers that they're doing their part to help the people of Brazil. They're producing hand sanitizers, which is something they don't usually produce, to support their communities when they most need it, and in particular in the favelas. So each buyer persona is different, and their journey is different, and your messaging has to be respectful of that. So a couple of things about that. So we've talked about buyer personas, we've talked about buyer's journey, and we've talked about how you're sort of on the online markets. Before we go on to talk more about the distinctions between the different markets, I wanted to launch another poll. So what are your top target markets today? What are your top target markets? Canada, Europe, Asia Pacific. And I'm sorry, I was only given 5 options. So there's another big sort of thing there. It's called other, and other is like everywhere, India, Africa, Middle East. But I did want to sort of, highlight some of the top exporters that Delaware currently has as well, for example, Canada. So very interesting. I think I was right to highlight Canada. Very interesting on that. There's a lot of interest in Canada, but also in Asia Pacific and Europe. Really very interesting data. Appreciate you all responding to that. I can tell you that the big winners, well, I guess there's 3 big winners, no surprise: Asia, Europe, and Canada, in that order for that. But thank you all for responding to that. I'm going to close the poll now and go back to our buyer personas, and then the differences that you'll see in different markets. And I wanted to highlight this in terms of something on social media and marketing that that you could do with websites. So this is just a screenshot of some social media that we ran. It is for the same company. It's on Facebook on both times in the UK and in Mexico. In both times, it's for the same product in both examples, and very, very different results. When we did the one for the UK, obviously it's localized, it's in English and all of it, but we were really, really pleased with ourselves. We had 9,500 people that it reached, and over 1,000 people actually engaged in it. We were just yippee. That was a fantastic score. We were really, really pleased with ourselves, patting ourselves on the back. Difficult to get that score in frosty old England. Mexico blew us out of the water. It reached 371,000 people. We had shares and likes and loves and ha-has and all kinds of things, 51 comments. And the UK, we had 1 comment. So and over 200 shares. We had so many reaction in Mexico. Same product, same platform, different result because of different market. Let's look one step deeper behind that, though. The blue and the red in these 2 charts represents the engagement. In other words, how many people shared it, liked it, looked at it in Mexico, and then in the UK on the bottom. So you can see the UK is really a fraction of what the response is in Mexico. And this is the same company over Facebook over 12 months. What's interesting, though, is the blue, the yellow and the green bar charts, which here show conversions. In other words, how many people are actually buying the things. And that's something you see quite differently. And there you'll see that the engagement rates are much more similar. What that means is that you've got to get that level of engagement to get that level of conversion in Mexico. You need a much lower rate of engagement to get the same level of conversion in the UK. Anyway, some examples of how different markets react to different media, social media, and website marketing for that, and website use. Again, using websites to drive lead generation. Jeff, why don't you tell us a bit about e-commerce just briefly as well, please?
Sure, Susanna, happy to do that. Hello to everyone. A lot of thanks to Beth and Emma for having us here. Good to engage with Delaware companies on these strategies. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on e-commerce today. Today is really more about the first step, which is enhancing your online presence. We can have another discussion and may even do a future program with Export Delaware about how to choose the right platform or develop your e-commerce strategy. We know it won't apply to everyone, but if it applies to you, this is a great time while you're stuck in the office to think about how to do it better. And if you're not selling online, this is probably a good time to consider it. First things first, important to have a sense for how big the global e-commerce market is. $3.5 trillion globally. So what that means is of about 7.5 billion people, 4.5 billion are online, and 3.5 billion are shopping online. So 45% of the world's population is buying something online. You know that the United States is a huge market, about 560 billion. It wouldn't surprise you to see that China is the powerhouse, much bigger, about 740 billion dollars in e-commerce spend. Europe is also large. If you were to roll Europe up as a whole, it's about the same size as the US. So during COVID-19, a lot of people are sheltering in place. They're ordering things more online. And the two winners are online groceries, certainly, and of course, Amazon. I can only vouch for the steady stream of packages that has shown up on my front porch recently, but Amazon already accounts for 4 out of every $10 of global e-commerce spend, and it continues to gain market share. I get a text every few days telling me that the local distribution center is hiring. So e-commerce just keeps going up and up. And for those of you who are thinking e-commerce doesn't really apply to me because I sell in a consultative way to my customers, important to understand that the B2B e-commerce market is actually 3 times the size that of B2C. So B2B sellers ignore e-commerce trends at their own peril. Many people think of e-commerce as just selling to an individual consumer, sitting at their kitchen table, but the market is huge. Remember that whether you're facilitating a B2B or a B2C transaction, you are still communicating with and engaging a person. So even if your business model is different, you have to remember that 94% of B2B purchases are researched online before a rep is contacted, and a solid 3/4 of B2B buyers have indicated that they do more than half of their purchases online. So what this means is that even if you are selling B2B, your product or service is high price point, it's customized, and you take a consultative sales approach, your website has to be compelling enough to encourage that call to action and convince the customer to request a contact with you because that customer is already online doing his research. I want to take a few minutes now and give you some very practical examples of how companies use localized websites. So we build and manage international websites, but they really can come in all shapes and sizes, and there are a lot of different motivations for companies to build them. So what are some of the purposes that they serve? It certainly helps you reach new markets. We talk about the concepts of being found and being understood and being easy to do business with in your overseas target markets. It can help you raise visibility in the markets you're already doing business in, build your brand, if you want to think of it that way. It can help you develop content and or even become a thought leader in an overseas market. And I'll show you a very good example of that in a minute. Some people think of websites as only being valuable to engage customers, but it's also quite valuable to support distributors. Give your distributors a tool so that they can have a conversation about your products in their language, in their markets, but you retain control over how the brand is represented and all the imaging. Don't outsource your marketing to your distributor. It may not work out the way you want. It's also good for recruiting distributors. And at the end of the day, having a localized website for your target market builds your trust, it builds your credibility, it demonstrates your commitment to that market. It helps you own and control your online presence and also measure and manage it. The web is full of data, so there are a lot of numbers that you can look at to inform your marketing strategy. Really, at the end of the day, your goal should be to replicate what we call the local user experience that someone has in the United States on your English website in their own country, in their own language. That's the user experience that you want to give them. So let me take a couple of slides and give you some some practical examples of companies who have used localized websites. This first one is a company called Advanced Super Abrasives. They're from North Carolina, and they sell into a lot of other industries. Moving a machine that's impacted by the slowdown now, and they've taken a very positive philosophy towards navigating this time. Their CEO shared his philosophy with us, and so we thought we would share it with you. Different companies are opening back up at different times in different companies, and what he said to us is, if you're robust, you have a good international team, and you're still manufacturing, then this is actually a great time to be shaking the trees out there, putting out the flag, as Susanna said, to let companies know that you're ready for business, let customers know you're open for business and ready for the rebound, because a lot of your competitors may not be manufacturing. This company typically does 75% of their sales face-to-face, walking the floor at customers' facilities, but they have to pivot now, and developing good online tools has been one way that they do that. The next one is a company called Bulman Products, and this is a great example of how a company, they happen to be based in Michigan, could use websites to fix some long-term challenges and grow their business. They happen to be a world leader in the manufacturing of paper cutting machines and other arts and crafts tools. In a sector where there isn't a lot of brand recognition. They work through a lot of distributors, and in many cases their products are part of a large range of products that are sold by the distributor. So they did two things with their sites. Number one, they used it as a great distributor recruitment tool. They were always looking for more. They were able to put up some good localized advertisements to get the right people in their network to help sell more effectively. Data from the web also gave them some visibility to who their end clients were, because all their business and data was coming through distributors previously, helped them raise their brand. And one thing that they did to reach out and engage their users, their customers, is during Easter time in Germany, they actually did a blog in German for primary school teachers on how to do creative Easter projects with paper. So it was something that could help them stand out and really connect with the people in classrooms that products. The next example is Avionics Support Group, an aerospace components manufacturer down in Florida. They're being hit hard at the moment, as many others in this sector. And for them, it was about supporting distributors that they already had. They had agents in China and many other places. They didn't feel that they were doing a terrific job of explaining the complexities of a very technical product. So they developed these websites so that their reps could have these on tablets, sitting down and talking with customers and differentiating their product. But it was also a great way to raise their brand visibility almost immediately. They told us that as soon as they developed their Chinese sites, a nice extra benefit from that is they started getting inquiries from Chinese airlines to buy parts that they'd never had before. So almost immediately they saw a return on their investment. Susanna, was there a point at which you wanted to insert the third poll, or shall we keep moving here for?
No, I think we should keep going. We'll
Okay.
save some time for those questions at the end. They're coming in. So we
Sounds
need
good
to
to me.
move ahead. Thank you, Jeff.
Sounds good to me. So one last example here, a company called Amsoil, a synthetic oil manufacturer. In this case, two different brand objectives, not only a B2B objective, selling to their wholesale and retail purchasers, but also B2C in raising awareness among customers to go into their local oil change and auto shop and request their oil. So the website served a couple of purposes for them. I want to touch very, very quickly on what we call our Delaware online global programs. Beth and Emma have been very kind to give us a forum to talk about website localization today. And I just want to let you know that we have a program that we've put together for Delaware companies that gives you a 2 website build with a predefined scope at a predetermined cost. So professionally optimized, localized websites for your 2 top markets. We find a lot of clients appreciate this because they don't have to worry about cost increasing with scope, and it's something very simple to undertake. We call this the Delaware Online Global Program Option A. We can speak more about that later. And the other option we have is a Delaware Online Global Option B, which basically can address any of the needs that you have. If you are interested in doing one large website for a single market, you want to do multiple markets, you want to integrate e-commerce or attach your website to a customer relationship management system or whatever it is, we can cover it. We can cover it there. So Beth, we did not ask Beth to to create this slide for us, but we very much appreciate it. Just another reminder that the recent increase in step funding for digital strategies really does make this a great time to look at enhancing your international online presence, and we'd be happy to speak to any interested companies after the webinar. So we've been through.
Jeff,
yes.
if I will interrupt you now then.
You may.
If I may, to launch that poll. Let me launch it now, since I think this could be a moment as well. So if you are interested in learning more about the option A, the 2 websites, or if you have a specific request on the websites, which would be option B, or indeed even online marketing, which would be another service, or if you want to hear more about the grants and the online global program for Delaware, would you like us to call you, within the next month, or within the next, are you concerned about the rapidity of it? Would you like it soon? Let us know, and we will get back to you within that, respecting that time frame. So thank you very much for those responses. Looks like Jeff is going to be, we're all going to be pretty busy, but we appreciate that very much. And I think I'm now going to be, just the last response is still coming.
What a perfect segue to Susanna, who was going to wrap up with a summary and some question time anyway.
Thank you. I'm going to close that poll indeed. So now we have just the takeaways, this is a summary, and we've left some time for questions as well. So just in terms of our takeaways, what we would like to sort of emphasize from this webinar, I think the first message for us is that the world is online. And if you are a mid-cap company, this is good news. You know where your customers are, and you know where your prospects are. They're online. You know how to reach them. You reach them through your website and online marketing. You need also to prepare for the rebound and be there and not disappear from the radar. In order to do that, you need to have effective online business development tools. The world has moved substantially more online than it was just even a year ago. So the world is online, and prepare for the rebound. The next point is that an online world is by definition localized. It's what Jeff was talking about, the local user experience. So you can't just use your Delaware website to do this. You need to have a local online environment for your local clients and prospects to find you. So localized websites are customer-centric, and that's the point about it. And that's how customers find you. They find you via their local online environment. The third point is don't stop communicating, especially now. Don't disappear from the radar. Communication, even if the communication is, bear with us while we're still sorting things out, but we're there. Even if the communication is, we're not quite ready to do business now, but keep us in mind. Keep communicating. It keeps the relationships open. I guess from Jeff and I, a final, just a little message. Look after yourselves. Times are difficult. Be kind. Look after your communities. Look after your loved ones. With that, we are going to turn to some questions, and I'm sorry we're a little bit longer than we normally are, but I can say we have quite a few questions, including one straight to Beth. So Beth, if you wouldn't mind, there's a question here which says, is this a short-term step proposal, or will it still be here in the next few months?
Well, one never knows with the SBA, quite frankly. Typically they allow $3,000. Now they've doubled it to $6,000. I will make a guess, and I will say that it will be probably for the next year. But
Okay.
I can't be 100% sure.
Okay, thank you. That's terrific. Linked to that, in a way, I guess, about timing. Jeff, here's one for you. If you would, someone asking, we have a business trip scheduled for October. Could we get websites before that? So like, how long does it take to get a website?
The answer is yes, you certainly can. We find typically it takes 2 to 3 months to develop a good quality, best practice localized website. And if you were doing 2 markets at once, that wouldn't be 3 for one and then 3 for the other. It would be 3 for both. So June, July, August, that's perfect timing to be ready for your trip in October. So not a problem.
Thank you. Beth, another one for you. How do you select the companies, and is there a cap on the number of companies that can apply?
We do everything. We have a budget of funds for grants. So it is on a first come, first serve basis until our funding runs out. So there is no limit. How do we select the companies? To receive STEP funding, you have to have an export plan. And we basically look at the strength of your application and what you would like to do.
Terrific. Thank you, Beth. And the Beth details are there, as well as our own in terms of email. We have quite a few requests also to have this as a recording. You will all receive a recording of this webinar in your inbox in 2 days' time. So please do check your junk mail as well, because it's sent directly from GoToWebinar, but you should all have it in your inbox. Jeff, another little technical question for you.
Sure.
Do you help to buy URLs? I've had troubles buying these URLs before. A URL is a domain name, like a
Yes.
.com.
Yes, we can certainly help with that. It's one good strategy to keep in mind is that if you have a long-term view to multiple markets, it's actually not a bad idea to buy those URLs now rather than run the risk of someone else owning them when you get to finally developing a website for that market. We can certainly help with that. There are different strategies to how you name your sites, and there are different requirements by country. Some countries like China and Canada, for example, require some local contacts, some local business presence. There are things to work around, but we have worked in any country you can think of to secure domain names, so we can help you with that process.
There's 2 questions going back about the option A and the costs. Just to reiterate, the total cost is $12,000. The STEP grant is $6,000. That's for 2 websites, and they can be in any language that you want. So they can be, someone's asking about Arabic. Yes, they can be in Arabic and German. They can be in, French and Chinese, Mexican, Spanish, and Hindu, whatever you want.
Correct. One thing to keep in mind is that depending on your individual strategy, it's also not a bad idea to consider doing a localized website for another English-speaking market. You may think it's not necessary, but as Susanna will admit, in the UK and also in Australia, search terms can be very different. Local hosting can look very different, and there are good reasons to localize for other English markets as well. We have some resources about that on our website.
Indeed. We've come around about the end of our time, I do see that there are other questions. I do see them, thank you. And we will reply directly via email to those questions because they're quite specific and they're quite technical about, content management systems and things. But thank you. You will all get a recording of this in your inbox. And it just stays with me to thank my colleague Jeff for helping me out here and being a support also for all the Delaware companies. And he'll be reaching out to any of you who asked for that. And from Jeff and I and from the IBT team, we really, really wanted to thank Beth and Emma. Emma hasn't said anything on the webinar, but she's done an amazing job doing the marketing. And Beth is an absolute rock of support for Delaware companies. I think you all know her, and we all appreciate all she does to help on the international scene, and where she is so active. So thank you very much, Beth and Emma. And also Jeff, thank you all Delaware companies for attending and for your questions and your responsiveness and your polls. We really appreciate the interaction. Keep trading, keep out there, and we will see you on the internet somewhere. We hope you enjoyed this. Thank you very much. Stay safe, stay well. Thank you, Ro. Thanks, bye-bye.
Thank you.